Rick breathes heavily as he gets beaten up during training, feeling like he might die. His trainers, however, praise him for his significant improvement, assuring him that the E-rank exam will be easy now. It's commonly believed that one should start young if they want to become an adventurer, but that's not the case for our super old hero, Rick. Rick goes to the examination guild to get his exam ticket. The receptionist, Alicia, recognizes him as her former colleague. Rick mentions that she has transferred to the capital, and Alicia confirms this. She comments on how unexpected it was when Rick quit his receptionist job 2 years ago, and even more surprising was his decision to become an adventurer. Rick mentions that it's unusual for him to start at 30, especially since most people apply in their teens, achieve F rank, and get promoted to E rank within 2 years. Alicia asks about his past 2 years, and he explains that he spent them training with his seniors in the mountains. Suddenly, a drunk knight appears and starts flirting with Alicia, grabbing her hand and telling her to have some fun. Rick intervenes, placing a hand on the knight's chest, who then randomly loses consciousness. Rick gently rests the knight at the counter, gets his ticket, and says goodbye to Alicia. He feels disappointed that his examinee number is 4242, which he considers unlucky. Rick then meets his friend Rionette outside. He can't help but stare at her melons. He comments that the youngsters are full of energy, to which Rionette responds by asking what that has to do with her boobs. Rick replies, saying she's just imagining things. Bro is down bad for sure. Inside the examination guild, people gather around the unconscious drunk man, surprised by the hand mark on his armor. They are even more shocked to discover that he is Demon, an A rank known as the King of Tyranny who is on assault charges. Rick whooped his ass not knowing he was an A rank. Rick proceeds with his exam. At 174 centimeters tall and 32 years old, he surprises everyone. The examinees are then taken to another room to measure their magical energy using a magic orb. While it shines brightly for everyone else, it only gives a brief twinkle for Rick before fading away, resulting in an F rank. The other examinees mock Rick, hoping they won't end up like him. Next, they move on to the phase of hitting a green slime bag. Rick recalls training on a golden slime bag for the past 2 years, hitting it 30,000 times daily. He doesn't realize that the golden slime is much tougher than the green one. Everyone tests their strength on the slime bag. An 11-year-old boy, the second son of the Diremouit family, arrives next. Despite his magic being as strong as a C-rank adventurer, he is all show and no action. He launches a small fireball, which, while not very impressive, is notable for being third nature pyro magic. Rick remembers dodging Alicerette's pyro fireballs during his training, causing him some serious PTSD from those intense sessions. When it's Rick's turn, the examiner tries to undermine him, commenting on his age, but he is unbothered. Rick punches the slime bag so hard that it flies out of the building through the wall, leaving everyone astonished. The young boy is furious that Rick has stolen the spotlight. Next, they move to the defensive phase of the test. Rick easily defends himself using air cushion, a first stage magic. The examiner increases the attack power, but Rick still defends effortlessly, attracting even more attention. The examiner, reading Rick's name, learns that he was a receptionist for 14 years at the Tigger Road Sinquat branch. Afterward, Rick sits with Rionette and discusses the exam, confident that he will pass both the practical and written portions easily. Rionette comments on how much he has improved over the past 2 years. Just then, the little boy comes over and starts annoying Rick. Rick forgets his name, which makes the already spoiled and autistic child even angrier. The boy introduces himself as Fried Diremouit and brings his older sister for revenge. When Fried cries, his big sister barges in and introduces herself as Angelica, the first fighter of the Diremouit family. Fried mocks Rick, claiming he's 40, but Rick corrects him, saying he's 30. They argue back and forth like children until Angelica challenges Rick to a duel. Rick is afraid because Angelica is an A-rank knight. However, his friend tries to reassure him by reminding him of his training, which only adds to Rick's stress. Rick accidentally picks up Angelica's glove from the ground, accepting the duel. They head to the stadium, where Angelica declares that if she wins, Rick will become her slave. Despite his worries, the duel begins. Angelica, thinking she is incredibly fast, charges at Rick, but she is super slow for our hero Rick, who trained with his godly seniors. Rick dodges every move, though he's too dumb to recognize Angelica's clumsiness as anything but attacks. When Angelica trips, Rick mistakenly believes it's a powerful spinning attack. Despite her efforts, Angelica can't land a hit. Finally, Rick goes on the offensive and attempts to strike Angelica, who is saved only by accidentally tripping again. Angelica is stunned by Rick's strength when she sees the massive crater his punch created, making her accept defeat. As Rick is about to state his terms for winning, Angelica quickly grabs her brother and flees in shame. Rick is confused by his easy victory. Rionette advises him to accept the win and informs him that his master Brotson and others will come to check on him later, causing Rick to panic. What a nervous wreck. The guild receptionist announces that the first stage of the exam results will be revealed soon. Mana will be sent to the participants' exam tickets, turning them blue if they advance to the next stage. age, a mock exam scheduled for tomorrow. Rick is anxious about passing, but Rionette reassures him, encouraging him to have confidence. Rick appreciates Rionette's kindness, thinking he regrets not being 10 years younger. Rionette then warns Rick that if he fails, his training will be tripled, causing him to panic and feel like he might die from the intense training. When the results are announced, Rick discovers he has passed the exam, and they leave the waiting room. Overjoyed, Rick exits and immediately smells a strong perfume that makes him nauseous. The source is Raster Diarmid, the eldest son of the Diarmid family, who starts flirting with Rionette. As Raster becomes too flirty, Rick intervenes, claiming Rionette is his girlfriend to protect her from Raster's advances. Raster, like the rest of his family, is egoistic and spoiled. Raster starts boasting about being an A-grade adventurer and belittling Rick as an ugly, worthless pawn. When Rick steps in to save Rionette, she grabs his hand and presses her boobs against his arm, signaling that Rick is her man. This infuriates Raster, but Rick, feeling shy and blushing, is overwhelmed by Rionette's gesture. Raster then threatens Rick, revealing he will be one of the examiners and vows to teach Rick a harsh lesson. Raster is determined to prove to Rionette that Rick is weak, unaware that Rick has trained with the strongest party in the world. After Raster leaves, Rick apologizes to Rionette for pretending she was his girlfriend. Rionette reassures him, saying she was actually happy he stepped in to protect her from Raster's advances. Rick blushes even more, feeling both shy and relieved. Meanwhile, Raster is drinking at a bar, seething over the day's events. His younger siblings, Angelica and Fried, approach him in tears, explaining that a man in his 40s humiliated them. Outraged, Raster demands to know the man's participant number, which Fried then describes as a super unlucky number. Raster realizes that Rick is the one who confronted his siblings, fueling his anger further. Now, Raster is even more determined to make Rick pay for humiliating the Diarmid family. Rick is worried Raster will sabotage his exam, fearing facing a grade A adventurer with high-level magic. As they walk, a man named Lynx Lorot approaches Rick, introducing himself as Rick's examiner. Lynx, motivated by Rick's late start in becoming an adventurer like himself, shares that he began his journey at 24 and that he reached B grade after 20 years of hard work. Rick is excited to meet someone with the same passion and feels relieved not to face a member of the spoiled Diarmid family. However, Raster is eavesdropping on Rick and Lynx. When Lynx leaves for the stairs, Raster intercepts him. Meanwhile, in the waiting area, Rick's happiness turns to worry when the announcer reveals that Lynx has suddenly fallen ill, and Raster Diarmid will now be taking over the exam. Overhearing a group discussing Raster's achievements, reaching A grade at 17 and being called the man of 1000 spells and F-rank crusher, Rick becomes even more anxious, especially hearing how Raster crushes anyone who crosses him. Feeling defeated, Rick tells Rionette he wants to go home, worried about tripled training and facing Raster. He feels bad that everyone says it's impossible for him to become an adventurer at his age. Seeing Rick's shattered confidence, Rionette kneels in front of him and insists she can boost his confidence. She reassures Rick that he is powerful and can easily defeat Raster. Rick feels encouraged by her words and regains his confidence. A random man in a cloak approaches Rick, complimenting him and offering to tell his fortune. As Rick checks his fortune, the man teleports him outside the exam venue. It's Fried in disguise. Rionette grabs Fried by the neck, demanding Rick's coordinates. Fried admits Rick is within a 100-meter radius, but his weak magic can't bring him back. Outside, Rick is surrounded by Diarmid family guards intending to kill him, boasting their powers of A and B rank adventurers. Rick's trainers arrive just in time, much to Rick's relief. The guards, intimidated by the massive orc among them, are unsure of who they are dealing with. A buff guard attacks the orc with his sword, which breaks. The intelligent orc, impressed by the guard's body strengthening, comments on the weak weapon. When the guard punches the orc easily grabs and crushes his hand, then heals it. Rick's cool teacher asks if the guards were trying to mess with him before the exam, and Rick confirms. The teacher then draws a new magical gun and shoots the evil guards, reassuring Rick that it won't kill them. Suddenly, one villain grabs Alicette and holds a knife to her neck, threatening to kill her if anyone moves. Rick, recognizing the danger, tells the villain he has a death wish and tells Alicette that they just want to play with her. The villain strikes Alicette with the knife, infuriating her and making her use powerful magic to destroy them, revealing her true strength. Another guard realizes Alicette unleashed a 7th nature magic effortlessly. The old master guard recognizes her as a prodigious vampire mage, the strongest mage at 10 years old, known as the demon child of ruin, Alicette Dracul. The old master guard reveals that the half-dwarf half-elf man, who looks much younger than his actual age of over 50, is Mizet Eldwarf, the world's best craftsman in the Millennium Atelier, capable of creating technology that seems 1,000 years ahead. He identifies the super-intelligent orc with immense strength and mastery of support magic as the wise orc. Brodston is short. All are S-rank adventurers and members of the continent's strongest party, the Orichalcum Fist, composed solely of S-rankers. The guard, awestruck, kneels, feeling lucky to witness such legends and ready to retire in peace. However, Alicette, still furious, furious, uses her magic to whoop them all. Meanwhile, Rionette continues interrogating Freed about Rick's whereabouts, but Freed states that his guard should have dealt with Rick by now. At that moment, Rick returns, asking Rionette about the hole in the wall, to which she simply replies that she just made a small cut. Lynx then arrives, informing Rick about how Raster beat him up to cheat and sabotage Rick's exam. Lynx shares that Raster called him a worthless pawn and an old man unfit to be an adventurer. Hearing this infuriates Rick, and he heads off determined to confront and defeat the arrogant Raster.